Time to light the match for the burning truth with Casey Hendrickson.
And good afternoon. Thank you for tuning into The Burning Truth. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. I want to thank all 6 affiliates for hanging out with us today. Also for those online on rumble.com/Casey the host. I'm very happy I was able to finally get the number. And I had Marlin Stutzman's number in my old phone, transferred phones, and for some reason his didn't kick over. So Congressman and Congressman-elect, I guess I just call you Congressman, right? Because you are a congressman. I mean,
sure, that works.
You were there, and now you're going back in the 3rd District, man. Congratulations, seriously.
Oh, thanks, Casey. I'm really, excited and honored to represent the 3rd District in Washington again, and I appreciate you having me on this afternoon. I'm looking forward to a lot of excitement over the next several months. It's already started, of course, with President Trump's nominations and all the new things that are happening. So it's really an exciting time.
Yeah, I have been. I mean, obviously for my job, like this is really good, but also just as somebody who genuinely likes Tulsi Gabbard, genuinely likes Matt Gaetz. Like I think those are good picks. I've been talking about RFK a lot today, more than I was planning on it, just because of what happened on CNN yesterday. But you're going to be in the House of Representatives again. Now, this changes things a bit from the typical election where you have a freshman congressman because you've been there before. Now, during the primary, you and I kind of talked about this when I interviewed you. But how important is it for the 3rd District that you as their congressman, you're going in? I'm assuming you're not in the basement anymore, right?
No. Actually, we just did our office selection today, and I took Greg Pence's
Did you
office
really?
as he's leaving. Yeah, so seniority does matter.
Well, and that's good. And for those of you who don't know, there's a whole pecking order on which level you can be on and when your office is going to be and that sort of thing. And the basement is where all the noobs go, but you're not a noob. So how important is it for the people of the 3rd District that Marlin Stutzman steps in as their former rep, who is now their current rep? You're not in the basement anymore. You have immediate experience. You have immediate influence. What can they expect from you committee-wise or any of that? Do you know any of that yet?
We don't know exactly committee assignments, but I do know that I have an interest in a couple of committees that will be very beneficial to Indiana as a whole. Both Greg Pence and Larry Bouchon, who have retired, were on the Energy and Commerce Committee, so there's several openings there. There's also openings on the Budget Committee, which I have a deep interest in as well, since we all know that the budget in Washington is a complete disaster, and the amount of money that is being spent daily far exceeds how much money is being taken in, and so the debt just continues to climb. And I was talking to Chairman Jody Arrington from Texas yesterday, and he has a firm grasp on how bad the problem is. And so now we'll have a president and a Senate that can work together to work at fixing our budgetary problems, but also, foreign affairs. The world is obviously much smaller today than ever before, but it's also more dangerous than ever before. But that, again, is where a president and commander-in-chief and Donald Trump will also be able to address those problems and make the world a safer place because he's a strong leader.
Now, the budget obviously is a huge thing. In fact, inflation and the economy are the first things that you listed on your campaign website. Obviously, you've got experience with that. Have you reached out to Congressman Rudy Yoakum, who's on the Budget Committee in the 2nd District of Indiana? Because that would be nice to have 2 Hoosiers there.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, Rudy and I we're great friends. We talk almost every day. We've been in meetings together and making sure that Indiana is well represented and working together as a delegation, because that's one thing that really does matter in Congress, is that you have people that are of like mind working together. Numbers, it's a math problem, as you know, Casey, that you have to have the numbers. And when the Indiana delegation sticks together, when Rudy and Marlin Stutzman stick together, that's when we can make things happen, because more voices talking about a particular issue are going to bring more light to it, and then the leaders will be listening. But Rudy is doing a phenomenal job. I mean, he's well respected here. I can see that. It's been great for me to touch base with my old colleagues. Many of them that were elected in the 2010 class are gone. Many of them are, like Kristi Noem. She was in the 2010 class, governor of South Dakota, now moving over to the administration. Ron DeSantis was a good friend. He was elected in 2012. Of course, he's gone. But there's a lot of the 2010 members that are still here, and the folks that were elected even before that. But it's great to touch base with them. And that'll also be very beneficial, having the seniority in that time from 2010 to 2017, where I can go back and reestablish those relationships to really get things done.
Now, budgetary-wise, obviously you've got Doge, which God, I love that. But if they come in, and let's just say Vivek and Elon are effective, and they do what they've been talking about doing, one that should make your job a lot easier in the House when it comes to the purse. But there's always going to be legal battles. And now we're hearing the Democrats are going to set up a shadow government, right? Some resistance to everything, all Trump. We know that when Trump got elected in 2016, he immediately tried to fix elections. The attorneys general in blue states fought him on it. They went to court. They judge shopped, bogged everything down. One of the things that I have talked with everybody about, and since you're going back to Washington, D.C., you're going to get it now too, Marlin, and I apologize. But the power of the purse is with you guys.
Yeah.
Are you going to have the intestinal fortitude, do you think, in Congress, not you specifically, but as a body, to withhold funds from states that will not comply with the federal government's direction when it is the federal government's correct purview and right to do so?
Yeah, no, I think so. We've been having several conference meetings already, and that's what chairman of the budget committee, Jody Arrington, was talking about yesterday. And it's one thing. I was here when Obama was president, and even though we had the House majority, we had the Senate majority for a couple of those years. When you don't have a partner in the White House that's willing to work with Congress, nothing gets done. And so at that point, your job is to hold the line. And I would even argue that Republicans didn't do the greatest job of holding the line because we cut military spending, but all the other spending that needs to be addressed was hardly touched when I was here before. And so now, we've got the trifecta, Trump leading, we've got the Senate, and of course the House. And Mike Johnson, I think, is going to be the difference maker because Paul Ryan back in 2017 is the Speaker of the House. We had the trifecta then. And there was, I saw it even as I was leaving in 2016, that Paul Ryan was disagreeing with President Trump even before Trump took office.
Right.
And that's why it was a failure. They didn't address the deficit because there was infighting there. And so now I truly believe most of the people that I haven't heard anybody as a naysayer say that, we need to do something different than Trump's agenda. I haven't heard that one bit. So everybody's on board the Trump train, and with the smart folks that he's bringing into his cabinet, and like you said, if the two leaders over at Doge, and what, Elon Musk, he was actually here earlier this week with President Trump and spoke to the conference. What he told us is that, he's going to find $2 trillion at least. And, that's what I think we really need is somebody who is smart, does the hard work, can figure out how to make these changes and then lead. Because I think many times we feel like the information we're getting is it's coming from all these different directions. But President Trump has such a great opportunity, and I don't think he'll fail the American people.
Well, and then also being a good steward, let's just say he finds $2 trillion, okay? Being a good steward of what happens with that $2 trillion. Does it go back to the taxpayer? Is it something that's needed for a special project? Maybe actually improve our infrastructure like we paid for Europe to do after World War II. Those sorts of things are going to be those tough discussions as well. But I was looking at, when's the last time you were in Congress, Congressman? Was that in 2017?
Well, I left at the end of 16. So,
okay.
Yeah, so 2017 was when Jim Banks took over the 3rd District.
Okay, so you left at the end of 2016. So the interest payments on the U.S. debt for 2016 was $460 billion. We are
Correct.
over $1 trillion now.
That's right.
It has more than doubled since you were last in Congress.
Yeah.
And that
That's
wasn't
right.
that long
It's
ago.
More than the military.
Yeah, that was not that long ago. We have a higher debt payment, and Congressman Stutzman's correct. We have a higher debt payment every year than the defense budget. And I don't know. That is just, I had to look it up because I was just kind of curious. We're talking about the budget, and I'm like, holy moly! I knew it was inflating, but wow.
Yeah, no, it is on a runaway train right now, and this is where you mentioned those cuts. I think that's where we have to pay the debt down. We can't continue just to rack up more debt. Balance the budget, stop the bleeding, and then you have to start. Growing the economy is such a critical part of paying the debt down. But I was at a U.S. Chamber forum a couple of weeks ago, and their forecast, and we're hearing this from other economists, that the economy is going to slow down from its traditional 3.5% growth. We're going to be down. We've been lately around the 2.9, 2.8% growth, and that they're projecting it to even be lower than that. So when the economy slows down, that affects the federal budget dramatically. And so, we need a strong, vibrant economy for those revenues to be up. But at the end of the day, Casey, we've got to make sure the American people their pocketbook is strong. Instead of worrying about the federal government's pocketbook being strong. It's a mess, but when the American people's pocketbook is strong, then that's when the federal governments will be better, and we need people who will practice fiscal responsibility when those things are happening.
Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about today, just while I have you for a couple of minutes, and since we were talking about RFK Jr. on the program earlier, you talked a lot in your primary campaign about health care and medical health freedom, as you framed it on your website. I've been an advocate for that. RFK Jr. says he's an advocate for that. What does that look like for Congressman Stutzman of the 3rd District?
Well, when I was in Congress before, I actually authored the right to try legislation first. We didn't get it passed. In fact, former Senator Joe Donnelly also helped carry that in the Senate. And we were the first ones to carry that bill to give people the ability when you have a particular disease that there's not a medication for or a treatment for, and it's a fatal condition, you should have the ability, even if the FDA hasn't approved it, there should be ability to try new medication that hasn't been approved, and maybe it's in trials or things like that. But people should have those rights. And what we saw in that effort, which President Trump then signed into law to give Americans more freedom in healthcare, that was reversed after COVID hit, where people were forced to take a vaccine that hadn't been tested, and we weren't even given many of us, people lost their jobs because they didn't take the vaccine. Soldiers, in fact, one of the congressmen, Tom Barrett from Michigan, he ran for Congress because he refused to take the vaccine, and he was kicked out of the military. Yeah. And so there were people that had a conscious decision to make in that scenario. So to me, having healthcare freedom gives each of us the right and the ability to make choices what we feel is best for me as a person.
Well, and the Indiana National Guard got hit really, really bad with the vaccine mandates, and I had meetings with National Guard soldiers, and they had audio tape of their chain of command admitting it was a violation of the UCMJ, but they were going to do it anyway. So hopefully there will be some restitution. I know that there's been some efforts to do that. There's been some progress, but I certainly hope that the new Congress will help those people out as well. But Congressman, thank you so much for the time. I'm looking forward to doing regular things with you like we have always done with Congressman Banks, and hope to still have him on the Senate side. It'd be great to have your voices. But congratulations for going back to the House of Representatives representing the 3rd District, and I think you're going to do a great job.
Thank you, Casey. Hey, it's great to talk to you this afternoon. Appreciate you and your audience.
Absolutely, man. It's always a pleasure. You take care.
You too.
All right, we got more coming up. You're tuned in to The Burning Truth. Pop quiz, because Morgan knows everything political. When was the last time the United States federal government passed a budget? Give me a guess. You're falling asleep over there. I'm trying to keep you awake. Give me a guess. Come on, give me a year. Let's go. Anything. Anything at all.
Wasn't it not that long ago, or is this the one that just keeps getting passed down the...
I'm talking about an actual budget. I'm not talking about a continuing resolution that we can spend money on. I'm talking about an actual annual budget passed by both houses and signed by the president.
It's 2016.
Close, 2019.
Okay.
But before then, it had also been a long time. So Trump came in and finally got one in 2019. And it was the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2019. So hopefully, we will actually get a budget. Continuing resolutions are trash. The Democrats will do everything they can to make them continuing resolutions and not be a budget, because the Democrats like using continuing resolutions to play politics at election time in order to demonize Republicans and get little pet projects funded and wasteful spending. And Republicans have got... There's a question on the live stream on Rumble. Is like, hey, can the Republicans actually come together, though, and do the work that the people need them to do? It's a valid question, because the last time that Republicans had both houses, they didn't. And it was, honestly, it wasn't the House of Representatives' fault. Yes, there were people in the houses, Congressman Stutzman had mentioned, like Paul Ryan, who were doing that. But your leadership in the House at the time was actively opposed to Trump. But the House would pass things that Trump would like. But on the Senate side of things, you just had these rebels and the Mavericks led by John McCain who just decided that they were going to go ahead and campaign on what Trump was promising. But then the moment they got their reelection solidified, they didn't just abandon the agenda altogether. So they did a lot of what he wanted to do, and then they just didn't do the other stuff. And a lot of the other stuff was the biggest promises. So Marlin feels that this Congress is going to be different because of the leadership that we have now. We talked with Congressman Banks, who's also the senator-elect for the state of Indiana, yesterday, and he feels that the Senate is going to be different now than it was back in the first 2 years of Trump's presidency. Ultimately, we aren't going to know until we actually get there. But there are different people in place. There is different leadership. Yes, some of that leadership is in the mold of the old leadership, but it is different leadership. And maybe that will ultimately be the change that we actually need to start getting this stuff taken care of. I hope so. I will believe it when I actually see it. Got more coming up. You're tuned in to The Burning Truth.
Podcasts by Federated Media.